Hi, welcome to another Android programming session. We'll be working with Alluc search engine. This is an API for streaming and downloading video links. There are numerous host links that could be used to source for data. In this tutorial, you'll be streamlining to the YouTube host data. For you to get started consuming different videos API using Alluc, you have to sign up and pick an API key from this link, https://accounts.alluc.ee. Once you launch this page, you have to register for a new account and get your API key. I would like you to do that right now and come back to start up with the coding and keep the API key right there in a notepad or a text editor. Afterwards, let's start streaming any keywords from YouTube. So we are going to actually get to the documentation of the Alluc APIs, where we're going to be working with the search examples with operators. These will enable us to stream with keywords from different host data, either YouTube, Vimeo, and so on. We're actually going to be using YouTube, and from this example, the call is pointing at the Alluc API search stream with your API key, and the query is pointing at the big buck bunny, while the host is youtube.com. So I'll actually copy this and let's run this right there in the browser to get the callbacks. Paste that right there and let me run that. We have a bunch of JSON files, probably 2, because we've actually set the count to 2 and the get meta 0. I'll try to take this out so we could get all data, all search related data to Big Buck Bunny from YouTube. Click on that. We're going to get a whole bunch of data, and I could easily copy all these, take that to the JSON formatter to get this visibly, paste that right there and process. In here I'm going to actually have the nodes callbacks. We have that right there, the JSON formatter. If you notice, we have the status, message, the results array. Right there in the results array, we have all the results of this particular keyword, and we have them right there in different objects. Can you see that? The Big Buck Bunny, different video links of the Big Buck Bunny down there. So from just one object, we could easily detect the primitive types and other nested values right inside this JSON. Firstly, we have the title, which speaks or depicts the title of this particular video. Likewise, the image ID will be focusing majorly. We have the host as YouTube. Let me just do this back so we have it clearly. The host name as YouTube. Now looking at the hoster URLs, that's where you're going to get the link to this particular video. From the file data ID, we have the path and also the URL. This URL is pointing to the YouTube link where you can actually stream this video. It's actually stream only and download is not available because you're actually using YouTube anyway. You have other host data source that you can actually get the download done, but we want to stream using YouTube, so we'll be pointing to different keys in this JSON and we'll be extracting few values. We'll be extracting just 3 values, the title and the URL. Very important. We need the title, we need the URL, and probably an identifier as well to help us identify each video. So we just basically going to extract few keys from this metadata, so we could understand what this is actually depicting. From here, we'll be shedding more light on how the source code will look like, we're actually going to use the settings activity to hold on to the shared preference to save the particular search keywords and pass to the loader. And you'll be using the async tags loader to create a background thread for fetching videos. Heading straight to Android Studio, I have the source code, and I will be showing you on how to actually get this done. Firstly, you will need to lock in your API key right there in the Gradle.properties, and you will be calling that right there in the build Gradle, which you pass into the build types each. You call the build config field, and the video stream, this is actually going to be the identifier. While the video stream API, it depends on what you're using. We've actually done this rather in the Movies app application, where we the best way to actually house your API key is by locking it down to the Gradle.properties, and you can actually call that with the build config anywhere in your application. The dependencies used were just the app compact version 6 just by default, and the constraint layout. These are all out of the box with the text compile JUnit. So you just have that simple. I'm actually going to be using all libraries from the Android support app compact. So we are actually not dealing with external libraries much in this particular tutorial. Head straight to the activity main, which is the launcher, and we have the settings. As I've said, the settings will help us to get the metadata, which is going to be the search keyword for the video stream, and also the video items, which will be attaching to the list view right there in the activity main. A peep into the activity main, we should be expecting something of this nature, where we have the relative layout wrapping around all fields, and the list view with an ID of list. The rotation is vertical with a layout with an item match parent, which we have right there showed, and an empty view is only visible when the list has no items. With an ID of empty view, you have that visible, and also the progress bar, which has an ID of loading indicator, and it's calling from the widget app compact progress bar. So once there is probably a search to the APIs, the progress bar keep rolling until the search completes, and the loader gets to fetch those data and show it gracefully down to the UI. So we have that set up in the activity main. The settings activity will be using the fragment, which actually points down to the settings activity and an inner class called the video preference fragment. We'll get to look at that shortly. Here is the video items, which will be sitting right there on the video list. It's a linear layout with different padding and left, right, and start, all 16 dps. So it's actually going to sit correctly on the list, with the first text view, which is actually going to depict the circular, let's say a circular view, where we're going to actually pass in the first alphabet of the title in capital letter right in the center of this particular circle, and the layout followed with the text view. We call that a linear layout, and it's right there housing the text view, which has the video title, and you have to set the title, and from there we have the URL attached as well. Once you click on that particular list or particular item, you will be launching the YouTube application, and if you don't have that right running on your device, you're going to be launching the web version of YouTube to show that particular video. So from here, we'll be heading straight to the Java classes, where we have the data subpackage, and we have other classes as well. In the data subpackage, we'll be having the video stream, which is the model of this particular application. A quick look at that. You have the title, the host URL. Those are the two keywords that we're going to be picking, and there's a constructor for the video stream that passes the title and the host URL string parameters, where you initialize them to what you're getting, and there's a get title and a get host URL. We're actually not setting values, we're only fetching from the API, so it returns the title and the host URL. Very simple. We'll be using this in the adapter to get bind data to the view. Looking at the main activity, which is the launcher, from here we're going to explain how this application will generally look like. The main activity extends the app compact as usual, and it implements the loader manager, the loader callbacks, passing in a generic, which is the list of the video stream, and also pointing out the shared preferences on shared preference change listener, the log, which will help us for debugging, and the video stream URL. Now look at the way we're going to construct this API URL. We point at the www.alluc.ee/API/search/stream and the question mark, just like what we are having right there at the start here, the question mark before the API key. Now back to Android Studio. The video stream loader ID followed. We have the video stream adapter that will bind data, and the text view for the empty state text view. In the onCreate method, you have to set the content view to the activity main. Now you find a reference to the list view in the layout, which is the ID list. We all know that. Also for the empty state text view, we get the ID, which is empty view. This time you're going to set the object of the list view to the empty view, which you have set right there to the empty state text view. The same thing goes for the adapter. You instantiate the adapter with the video stream adapter object. Now you're passing this activity and a new array list of the video stream. So those are the two data that you'll be passing down to the video stream adapter. So you set the adapter to the adapter object created. You have to obtain a reference to the shared preference file for this app. This will actually let me dive back to the shared preference settings activity, which actually takes the search keyword. From here, I'll stop at the main activity and dive down to the settings activity. Now in the settings activity, we call the layout settings activity. I believe we had that layout that had the fragment. That's cool. So we know how that layout is going to be. And an inner class called the video preference fragment, which extends the preference fragment, and it implements the onPreference change listener. That's if you change probably a value. So there's actually going to be a listener to that change. In the onCreate method, you have to create an XML package or a folder that will house the settings main XML. Let's get to look at the settings XML. We have it right there in the XML folder. It sits right there in the rest folder as well. You just create a new directory and you lock in XML, and right inside the XML you create an XML resource file. We have that called the settings main XML. In the settings main XML, we only have the edit text for the preference, which will enable us to change different keywords, and majorly if you are passing in any keyword, it's recommended to actually put a white space before another one. That's if you are passing a multi keyword, not just model them up altogether. Now in the edit text preference, we have the default values, calling the string settings search name default. We have that set right there in the string. And the input type now is text. You can put number, you can put decimal, depends on the input type you're expecting, but we want text. And the key, we have a key for our settings called the settings search name key. I'll be looking at the strings XML that houses all these, where you're going to have the settings search name. This is the label of the settings. This is the key, which is translatable to false, called the search name, and you have to pass a default key, which will actually load at first. And once you change, the listener will be triggered to make that change across the shared preferences. And the translatable false, and now we're passing Android Oreo as the search keyword. You have that there as default. So you have the label, the key, and the default value. Cool. Back to the settings main, you can easily finish this up and select all on focus to be true with the label, which is going to be the title of the dialog, because once you click on that, you're going to have a dialog, and the dialog must have a label, and the key and values are attached to that, so we could understand what that means. Back to the settings activity. Now we have a settings main XML right intact. We get a string, which is the settings search name keyword, and we'll find out the preference, whereby you're going to bind the preference summary to the value, which you have it as an object of the preference. Now on preference changed, once the preference change, once the value change, you have to get the string value, write them from the object of the value and pass that to string, and test if the preference is an instance of a list preference. If it is, you create a list preference object right from there, and you also test if the preference index, you have to get an index, which actually starts from 0, which is an array, and the list preference calls on the find index of the value of the string value of the object passing into this list preference. Now this is where the preference index is being tested. If it's greater than or equals to 0, you're going to extract the labels to get the entries of the preference index and pass that to the set summary. Cool, that's for the on preference change. That's actually going to handle the change of the values being passed around. Now on bind preference summary to the value, you want to now bind that summary to the value. You set on preference change listener to this particular activity and create an object of the shared preferences, which gets the default shared preference from the preference manager. And now you get a string, which is the key. In any corresponding key, there will be a value, key value pairs. So now the value will be set right inside there. We'll bind that value right with the key. So that's what that is doing. Now you trigger the on preference change at this point in time and passing the preference, which is actually what is changing, and also the preference string, the value that is actually changing, which will depict the object value we have right there. So on this note, this is the best way to actually undo on preference change on your settings activity. Recommended. Once you have that strong and rolling, you can furthermore right there with the code. Now we need to obtain the reference to the shared preference. We're in the main activity now. To get the first shared preference, if you're not familiar with shared preferences, how to set values to the shared preference, and also how to get that same value out of the key in the preference. This is just a very crash course to actually get you rolling with that. And you have to register to be notified of preference changes, so when the user has adjusted the query settings, you could also get that change. So that's where you have the prefs from the shared preferences to register on shared preference change listener to this activity. We have uh, an on item click listener on the object of the list view, but we'll actually look at other aspects before we get down to the on click of each item on the list view. You'll be getting the network state of your application by calling the connectivity manager to get the system service, the connectivity service, to actually know if your application is offline or online. You also get the details on the currently active default data network, which is the get active network information. Now, if there's a network connection, fetch the data, which you have in the if statement if network info is not equals to null or and the network info is connected. You trigger the loader manager in order to interact with the loaders. You have this as the loader manager object, and you call the init loader, whereby we have the loader ID null, and you pass this keyword. So you trigger it if the network connection is connected, probably once you have Wi-Fi or you have the data of the network service. Else, otherwise, if there is no network, you're going to, that's an error. You first of all hide the loading indicator, so the error message will be displayed. The loading indicator will be set visibility to gone, and you have to update the empty state with no connection error message. That means no internet connection. So it's also good to handle internet connection on your device. This actually needs a manifest permission of 100 permission access the network state. This permission, you all need that for that to work. Cool. With the onCreate method, we have the onCreate options menu and also the on options item selected. This is where you're actually going to have the settings triggered on click of the ID called the action settings. We have that right there in the menu called the main XML. Right there in the menu, you should know how to inflate the menu at this point in time. You have the item right there, if you can see it as well. That is the settings icon you have, and you are sending an ID to it called action settings. So this same ID is what is being triggered here, and a call to an intent to the settings activity is being launched, where you stack the activity settings intent. Cool. Let's get to look at the loader manager. Well, we have the onCreate loader, the onload finished, and the onloader reset. In the onCreate loader, there is a call to the shared preference, which you have here, and the shared preference object that calls the get default shared preference. Now there's a search term where you get the key and the value. The value you're seeing as the default value we actually passed in, so you could actually change that, and the listener will make that applicable. Now look at the way we're going to actually build the link we have. We have the video stream URL, which is pointing at what we've actually set up right here, over here. Now let's build further on it. You call the append query parameter to the URL builder, where you're going to actually point at the API key, because if you should notice, we need the API key immediately after the question mark and the value of the API key, followed by the query and the YouTube host. So we're actually going to construct that. The API key, now you could call the build config, where you actually set that in the gradle properties. And now you have the query parameter, which points down to the search term. The search term is from the shared preference, which is actually the search keywords. Now you need to concatenate this with the host you're using, which is YouTube. If you're using Vimeo, if you're using any other thing, so it's actually going to, you must have the host of where you're actually searching data from, which is YouTube. Now you build that URI with the URI builder to build that up. You can actually log that to the console as well to see if you've actually formed that correctly or not. At this point in time, you return the new instance of the video stream loader and pass this URI builder after converting that to string. There's the parameter you need to pass in with the activity calling it. So this video stream loader will take that from there, which you actually call on the async loader to do that in the background. Cool. On loader finish, you firstly hide the loader indicator because the data has been loaded, which you have here, and you set the text to no, the empty text to no videos found if there's call for that. You could also clear the M adapter. Now, if the video stream you get from the list video stream is not null, definitely bunch of data is being returned. You add all to the video stream, just like adding to the list array. You add each of the video stream objects to the list. So that is actually going to be handled. And on loader reset, you could clear the adapter once it's been reset. On shared preference changed, once there is a changed value, you pass in two parameters, the shared preference itself and the key. Now you need to test if the key equals to the search name key you're actually pointing or looking at. You firstly clear the list view as a new query will be kicked off, because so you've actually changed the keyword of search. You first of all clear up the adapter, and you hide the empty state text view as the load indicator will be displayed. You don't need to bring up the empty state text view because the action is actually going to happen. You want to trigger the loader. You start the load indicator to actually load up at a point in time, and at this point in time you restart the loader to refetch that data. When you get the loader manager, you restart the loader, you pass the loader ID, and you pass the necessary parameters as well. So this is actually going to refresh and call back the onCreate loader. It's going to actually call back the lifecycle, the onCreate loader, and the onload finished. And at that point in time, the load indicator's visibility will be gone. So that's just how the environment is. A look at the video stream loader that actually passed in this keyword with the list video stream. We have it right there, which extends the async tax loader, and the constructor is over there. The video stream loader, you're expecting the dis and the URL, which is the URL builder, which is being converted to string. These are the two things you're expecting right there once you trigger the video stream loader. You have that set up, and you will run this on the background. This is actually going to be run on the background thread, where you call the load in background because you've actually pointed to the async tax loader, and you pass in the URL to this, and an object of the video stream could actually call the query utils, which will be pointing to the fetch video method and passing in the MURL as the parameter, which you have to return the video stream. Now it's going to fetch some data down to the list, and it's going to return the video streams list, pass it back to the loader as well, which will actually fetch that and load it finished and pass it down to the adapter. That's just how the life cycle is. Now the query utils is actually going to parse those JSON. That's what that is going to do. This is actually going to parse the JSON and decompile it and get the data extracted from it. The fetch video that was called from the video stream loader, which expects the URL. Now you create the URL object. From that, you have to perform the HTTP request to the URL and receive a JSON response back. where you have the JSON response, which you'll be expecting. You're going to make HTTP request around the try and catch block, and you'll be catching for an IO exception, which could be triggered. So once that happens, you could just log that. We have an object of the video streams that calls on extract the feature from JSON, which you have from the JSON response, and it returns the video streams. Now let's get to look at the create URL, which is being triggered right inside the list, the fetch video list item. It returns a new URL object from the given string, and a try catch is also called here, where you instantiate a new URL. You pass in the string URL as a parameter. You have to catch for the malformed URL exception this time. The make HTTP request. There's an object that is being triggered right there in the try and catch block in the fetch video list. This expects a URL as a parameter, and it throws out an IO exception. This is where you get to decompile the URL you got. You call the URL connection, also the input stream. Now a try and catch block is also displayed here, where you set the read timeout of the URL connection in milliseconds. You set the connect timeout, and you set the request method either get or post or put or delete. Now we're getting fetching from the API. You connect the URL connection. If the request was successful, the response code could be 200. Then you read the input stream and pass the response. Now you get the response code. If it's 200, that's success. You get the input stream, and you pass that to the input stream value that was created in the input stream. You have that set up right there. Now you have a stream. You're going to pass the same stream down to the read from stream, which is this, and the read from stream is actually another method which you have right there, which is expecting an input stream, and it also throws an IO exception. This is where you call on the string builder to actually build up this. You'll be needing the buffer reader. You'll be actually spitting this out to the format you actually wanted. We are decompiling this. This is where you actually convert all this JSON response from the server, and the extract from JSON will be triggered, which pass the video JSON string as a parameter. So we're going to try to parse the JSON response string. If there's a problem with the way the JSON is formatted, a JSON exception object will be thrown, and you have to catch the exception so that the app doesn't crash. And this is where you actually get the JSON objects. Firstly, now we are actually pointing to the results, which we have right there. I've actually did a couple of videos when it comes to using HTTP connection to decompile your APIs and get you linked on. Firstly, we're pointing out the results, as you've seen right there, and which is an array. Cool. This is how you could easily know if it's an array. Look at this brackets sign, really means an array, and for an array you need to loop through an array to get the value. Now the video array length will be the argument. At this point in time, you get the JSON object from the object called current video of the JSON object, and this is what we actually point to the appropriate data type and extract it from the primitive data type. The first is the title, which you pass that to a string value, and now if you should notice, there is an inner array again called the all-star URLs. It's an inner array. So the way we're actually going to decompile that, you call another JSON object, and this time it's going to be from the previous JSON object. You get the JSON array called all-star URLs, and you get the JSON object of the first index That's why you have that as 0, because you only have one index right there. And from there you could use the object of this particular array to get the string called URL and pass that to a string host. So we could have the title and the host values. These are what you pass to the video stream model for save, and you add up to the video stream. Cool. That is all straightforward. That means you are adding up to the list array called video stream. We've actually set up. So you have that right there, and you catch for the exception so that it's actually not going to crash the application. So that's just the general overview of how this application is. And the adapter will be the last thing we'll be talking about, where you get to bind data we've gotten down to the views. We're actually extending the array adapter, and also you have the constructor of the adapter, which expects the streams list to actually display those values. Now you're going to get the view, so you firstly check if there's an existing list view item that we can reuse. Otherwise, you convert views not, then you inflate a new list item layout, which we have inflated right there, which is called the videos items. And the current item, the current stream rather, from the video stream, you get the item position of that particular item, and this is what you're actually going to use to get each values from the video stream model. Now for the title, you first of all get the view to the title. Now we use the current stream, which has the position, to get the title from the video stream we've added to, and you set that to the value you had. The same thing goes for the circular image that we actually used, and this time we're actually going to get a substring to the title, which is actually going to be the first alphabet of the title, and we convert that to uppercase. But we need to first of all test if the title is not equals to null, so that the application will not crash. It must not be null at the point in time when these two lines will run. So that's when you could set the text to the alphabet. You could have that beside each of the title right there in the list view. Back to the main activity. Once we have our list view set up and we could actually see each list item, now we need to trigger the set on item click listener to each of these list items, and you instantiate the adapter view on item click listener, where you override the on item click. This time you get the adapter to get the item position, and this is very important. Same thing you did right there when we're binding data. And now you have the current stream, so this is what we actually use to point to each of the get method, and it's just going to be predominant to that particular item you click on. And this time we're passing the URI out to any calling application. Firstly, it's actually going to search for the YouTube application if it's right there installed on your device. If not, it's going to call on the web version of YouTube, and the link, which is the host URL, will be passed along with the click, so you could actually see that viewed on the web or YouTube application. So invariably you're streaming that particular link, so that's cool. You could also get different hosts. I'll be laying hands on different hosts from now. I started with YouTube. I could lay hands on all that different formats, so we could know how to handle and how to view that same link. And we'll also be downloading. We'll be looking at links that we could download different videos. Not all hosts are giving access for download. Some are predominantly for download, so we'll also look at that in subsequent videos. So you have that set up, and you could test your application. You could have a robust search engine for YouTube. So that's just it. Probably you want to actually watch a tutorial. I need to learn about collapsing toolbar. Just tutorials on collapsing toolbar, that could search for different videos in YouTube that deals or that teaches collapsing toolbar. So it's quite handy and useful as well. So with this, you could be ready, set and going, and you could test your application. Now, right there, the manifest. As I've said, we need the access network state. I also need the internet permission. Very important, because you're actually calling APIs and you're actually doing some back and forth with it. Now we also need to lock in the activity we used. We use the settings activity apart from the launcher activity, which is the main activity. Also to use the settings activity, you need to register that right there in the manifest. Once you have that set up, you could test your application for the first time, and I'll be uploading the source code to my GitHub account. I will implore you to lay your hands on that, and I'll also be showing you a screencast of how this application look like. We'll be testing multiple keywords and we'll be getting different search list. We'll also be launching YouTube to view some of those links. Cool. Thank you guys for hanging out with me throughout this session, and please don't forget to click that button below, subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for hanging out with me once more. Have a wonderful time. Bye bye for now.